Hey, this is Matt Cain with the San Francisco Giants, and you guys are listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the three-time world champion, San Francisco Giants. With hosts Chad King and Eric Nathanson. This is TortureCast.
It's Tuesday, July 14th, 2021, and this is episode 231 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of your first-place San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me earlier today, was Eric Nathanson. The first 2 minutes of the podcast did get cut out for some reason, so I'm just plugging this in to let you know where we are. So we pick up the conversation shortly after we started. Have a nice stroll around the neighborhood and what have you, so... our temperature seems to correspond with how the Giants are doing. So they're not playing right now. That's why I guess it's a little cooler. But that's what we
red hot, and so are the Giants.
Yeah, and the Giants are in the midst of a winning streak right now. It's like you kind of hate to see it come, the break come like right during a winning streak. But it's a modest 4 games. But we talked about this last time, how they don't get too high and they don't get too low. This team is very consistent. Their longest winning streak has been 5. The longest losing streak has been 4. Which they only did one time. I think the winning streaks happened twice. So, they can match 5 again if they come out against St. Louis on Friday. This team is just blowing our expectations out of the water. Even Eric, who had the high water mark in terms of a win prediction at 88, looks like they are probably going to get into the 90s somewhere, even if they finish the second half playing 500 ball. They're going to be at like 93, 94 wins or something like that. Maybe actually, yeah, something like that. So... this team is fantastic. They are leaders at the All-Star break. They have the best record in baseball, and this is, as far as record-wise, similar to what they did in 2016, and I'll get to that in a little while, some comparisons with that 2016 team. But they are season-high 25 games above 500. They sit 2 games ahead of the Dodgers and 6 games ahead of the Padres. Who would have thought that? And they have a record of 57-32. I think I predicted 75 wins, so they're only 18 wins from my win total, Eric. They might hit that by mid-August.
They will. They will hit that by mid-August. That's crazy.
I know. I mean, it's like there's no chance of my win total being right here. Well, at least I hope not. Knock on wood. They've got 4-2 since we recorded, and that's what their record was on their last homestand. They did drop 2 of 3 to the Cardinals, but they came right back and swept 3 from the Nationals. And they're 3-0 in those horrible City Connect jerseys, which have now apparently, I gotta say, if you're a Nike marketing person and you saw that the social media wrath over those jerseys, you're thanking the baseball gods that they won all 3 in those jerseys, because that softened the blow. Could you imagine if they had lost 2 out of 3 or all 3, the gasoline that'd be poured on that fire right now? But because it's like everyone's talking about on social media, who's at least reasonable, and on radio, most people hate those jerseys, but they're like, what are you gonna do? They're 3-0 in them, so hey, it's like
I loved them.
I know you were the one dissenting opinion of the 3 of us. Willie and I absolutely hated them. It's funny. I saw Susan. I think it was Susan Slusser, who of course used to cover the A's, now covers the Giants. She was in the press box over the weekend, and she tweeted out a photo of a creamsicle, an orange creamsicle. And so Giants PR staff handed out creamsicles to all of the writers in the press box. I was like, they're just leaning into it, man. I love it. That's great.
Had a video tweet. Renell had something where she's like, okay. She's like, well, I have to promote this. And she holds up the jersey and she's like, come out to Saturday's launch event for these jerseys that you guys don't seem to like, but I have to promote this, so please come out. It was just so funny. Everybody did. They kind of leaned in. I liked it. I liked having the bright white. It was just something different. It didn't really. I could read the numbers and the names just fine. I thought it was great. I liked it. It was way better than the crap we saw last night. I enjoyed the Giants, and they'll wear it like 5 more times now.
Yeah, it's 5 or 6 more games throughout the whole year. So when you add it up, it's 8 or 9 games. It's 10% of their season or home uni wear, I guess you could say. So, but that's fine. The 3-0. Maybe it'll become something. Maybe every Tuesday night at home is a guaranteed win. We'll see. So anyway, we have a lot to talk about today. So, and it's a little bit old news now because of the All-Star break, but just real quickly review the St. Louis series. They lost that first game 5-3, and this was Gausman having a rare loss. He actually had a no-hitter into the 7th inning, and he was looking really great. But then suddenly he just bunched all of his hits together, which is one thing you do not want to do as a pitcher. But it was a couple of singles, and then, of course, it was a 2-run, 2-out triple, which drove in the first 2 runs of the game. Dickerson did hit his 8th home run of the year, but it was too little too late, and they lost that one 5-3. I mean, Gausman is definitely one who misses a lot of bats, so it's not surprising that he would be having a no-hitter carried into the 7th inning. But unfortunately, on the other side, they were tossing zeros as well. So it was a scoreless game going into that frame. But, Gausman gets the loss, but, I mean, he still overall had a good game. Still only gave up those 3 hits in 7 innings.
Well, if you remember, they played the night before in Arizona, and this was a day game, so they had to travel and then come home and play during the day. And the Cardinals also had to travel and then played the day before, and it was a day game. So I think both teams were sluggish, and it was ripe for Gausman to have a no-hitter. It was one of those kind of perfect days for it to happen. And then I tuned into the game, and all hell broke loose.
Yeah, they're like, well, Eric's in here, so let's go ahead and screw the pooch on that. Yeah, you just hate to see, a great effort by your starter, especially with a no-hitter after 6, to get kind of just lost like that. The second game, this was another tough one. I actually took my kids to this game. It was a lot of fun. We went to Momo's for dinner before, took them to the Giants dugout store. We got some sweatshirts for them. They needed it. I told them how cold it can get up there. We were prepared, though, with blankets and everything. But we sat up in the nosebleeds. This is the last series they offered the socially distanced seats at. So it was way up in the third deck down the third baseline. Kids loved it, though. It's funny because last year, or 2 years ago, I should say, our last game that they came to, we were sitting right behind home plate. And I love those seats. They did too, but these were like $15 seats up in the nosebleeds. And my kids loved it. They loved the sight lines. They loved seeing kind of the bird's eye view of the field and the players. They actually preferred it up there, which was a little shocking to me, but maybe that'll be easy to take them to games now. I don't have to get the best seats, right? I just go sit in the nosebleeds with them. But Johnny Cueto did start, and we had a lot of fun. I was having them pay attention to his shimmy and what he was doing. They liked all his pregame rituals and just joking with all the players. He was inconsistent again. He's just kind of hopping back and forth between a good start and a ho-hum start and a bad start. I did point out in the first inning when Nolan Arenado came up, I said, this guy is a perennial Giant killer. But this is his first year with the Cardinals, but I don't think it's basically going to matter what color he's wearing. He's always killed, boom! And right when I was talking, he hits that bomb to left field. And my kids just started laughing. They're like, how did you know? I was like, well, I didn't predict a home run. I was just letting you guys know that. He just somehow feasts on Giants pitching. He has had walk-off home runs. He's hit for the cycle. He's done so many things against the Giants. And it's just, as a Giants fan, he's, it's a little post-traumatic stress disorder with Arenado. There always seem to be these guys. There's a handful of these guys in the league, and he's one of them, and he definitely killed the Giants that night. He actually performed pretty well the whole series, but they lost 6-5. But the one thing that I will say about this game is they got into that last inning, and they got to the Cardinals bullpen, and they got a couple of runners on there. And Jason Vossler, this is funny. It was like one of those like, what? Jason Vossler to the rescue, who was just called up. And to be honest, he put a charge into one. And from our view down the left field line, I knew it was going to be close. But right when he hit it, I obviously knew it wasn't going to be out. But I thought maybe it would have some tailing action, had a line drive action. And just immediately picking up on that left fielder, he was on his horse right away. And I was like, oh, this might get over his head. And unfortunately, it was one of those balls. I don't know what the expected batting average was on that. But I would have given the fielder a 50-50 chance to catch it. And he made a nice running catch. But if that goes over his head or goes off his glove or was hit, 5 feet to the left or 5 feet to the right, that wins the game because there are 2 outs and the runners would have scored. So we were mere inches away from seeing a walk-off victory. So it was nice to see them come back in that fashion, and it was an exciting game. It was a very entertaining game.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got the most entertaining game of that 3-game series, the one you went to, even though they lost. And it really, you didn't walk away gut punched either. It wasn't
No.
a like gut punch loss. Like, yeah, they're frustrating. They still weren't driving in guys with runners in scoring position. But it didn't feel like oh, the Giants had that one if they hadn't screwed this one thing up. No, there was nothing you could point to. It was totally entertaining. I'm sure your kids had a good time because that was like back and forth baseball that whole game, and getting to see stars like Arenado and Goldschmidt come through, is also just as good as seeing not as seeing a Giants victory, but it's just as good as seeing our own Giants players. So I could totally see how that was a fun game to go to.
From a baseball point of view, a fan point of view, yeah, trying to put that Giants, allegiance aside, it was a very, very entertaining game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was at this point though, even though the loss wasn't frustrating or anything like that on its own, it was at this point that, in the back of my mind, at least, it was like, oh no, the Giants are in that stretch. They could get swept by the Cardinals. They could end up blowing some games against the Nationals. Oh no, and then they totally.
It's true.
Yeah, it really. I mean, they had the series against what was it, Arizona, over the weekend, and it felt like they bounced back by winning the 3 of 4, and then you're like, oh no, here's a team that's not Arizona, and they're going backwards, and oh no, it's going to be the thing. So it was so nice to see that they bounced back on the Wednesday game, and were able to beat St. Louis in pretty easy fashion in a 5-2 game.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, again, the Resilient SF hashtag rears its, horrible marketing slogan head name, but they had lost 4 in a row, including those 2 against LA. Then they won 3 in a row against Arizona, and then they lose 2 in a row right away against St. Louis. And you're thinking, is this when they start playing 500 or worse? Like, is this when it starts happening? But yeah, they end up closing out the first half, winning these 4 in a row, and of course the streak is still alive. You're right though. Alex Wood comes out in Game 3, and when you lose 2 out of 3, but you win the last game of a series, it feels so much better, doesn't it? It's funny how psychology works in baseball. The numbers are exactly the same, but if you had won the first game and then lost the next 2, you walk away feeling pretty crappy, going like, man, we should have won 2 out of 3. You lose those first 2 and you come back and you win that last game. You're like, well, we salvaged one. We didn't get swept. That's fine. We're going to lose a series from here, here and there. So, but Alex Wood was great. He got his 8th win of the year, which, by the way, Disco is 10. Gausman is 9. I mean, this is pretty amazing. You have 3 pitchers that, they're not all going to get to 20 or anything, but they're, could get to 15, each one of them. It is possible. Ref hit a home run, and it was a good thing that the pitching held up again because the Giants, and it's a theme that we touched upon last time with the series in LA, and now the series against the Cardinals, and even to some extent against Washington. Their batting average with runners in scoring position overall for the season isn't abysmal, but for the last couple of weeks has been horrific. That second game, they were 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position, and in this third game, even though they won, they were only 3 for 15 and leaving 11 men on base. So they won 5-2, but I mean, it's one of those games where they could have busted this thing wide open.
Yeah, I give credit to Alex Wood for never feeling like the game was gonna, get away from the Giants. Like he allowed them to make the mistakes of leaving the runners on base. Basically, what I'm trying to say. You know, and he looks so sharp. And when he's got his rhythm, he's fun to watch. When he's got his rhythm and he's hitting that strike zone consistently, because that's when he's effective, is when he pounds the zone. And it was good to see Ruff once again contributing. Darren Ruff. I mean, who the heck knew that so many guys would be so many different contributors, and Darren Ruff has been so far a great find. I saw something where he used to not be able to hit the breaking pitch, and then when he went to Korea, he learned how to hit the breaking pitch, and it's made him effective. It's really kind of neat that Darren Ruff and Alex Wood are the reason the Giants are winning games, on particular days. And so it's like you said, it was great to get the taste out of the mouth of losing the 2. You get a win before an off day and before seeing the Nationals, and it just, instead of being frustrated, the Giants were able to go into the national series with some positive energy. It was. I totally know what you mean, because we totally could have rued, oh, they should have done this and oh, they should have done that. But since you come off a win, it's like, okay, we'll take it. It's like a gift,
Yeah,
move on from there.
not as bad as a sweep, so it's all right.
Right.
So yeah, they come in for the last home series of the first half, and they swept Washington. That first game was my first time covering as press since they lifted some of the COVID restrictions. The clubhouse is still not open to the media, but they did open the field and the dugout to pregame interviews and batting practice for press who are vaccinated. So they are checking that. So, for example, when I picked up my media credentials, I had to show them my little vaccine card, and then they put a little special holographic sticker on your pass, and so that tells the security on the field this guy's okay to get on the field. So that felt just so great. I mean, it was just one of those things. We all missed baseball, and when it came back, it was wonderful. Then we all missed the fans being in the field or in the park. That slowly come back, and now we're pretty much at full capacity. Obviously, the media and others have been missing out on this and a lot of access to the players, to be honest. But just getting back on the field just was invigorating. Gabe Kapler came out. It's the first time I've seen him in person. Everything's been on video, I've never even seen the guy except for, from the standing in the dugout or something from far away. And it was great. He definitely was very candid. He was joking a lot with the reporters. Just a lot of interactions I haven't seen before because I only see the video clips instead of kind of the behind the scenes. Seemed pretty affable, nice guy. But they had just made the announcement prior to him coming out that Buster Posey was placed on the injured list and would be missing the All-Star game. So that was kind of an unfortunate thing. We had seen Joey Bart. Like, I'd seen him out there before they had announced that he was officially on the taxi squad, but they called him up to be on the taxi squad. And then he came out and all that stuff was confirmed. And I have that all, on our Facebook account somewhere. And then it was like 10 minutes after we were done with him, I turned around and then suddenly Buster Posey's there. I was like, whoa, wait, Buster came out. So there was only about 6 or 7 reporters, to be honest. There wasn't that many. Yeah, we all crowded around Buster, and, his thumb was all wrapped up. And he just talked about, his decision. He said it was pretty easy. He really couldn't catch a ball or swing a bat without pain. And so he's like, if I can't catch and can't swing a bat without pain, I'm not going to play. He's like, it's just an easy decision. So, he also, I think he's been around the block so long, and he's always been one to not, I guess, revel in public adulation, right? He's never sought the spotlight, I guess you could say. So for him, even though he said, of course, it's an honor to be elected as a starter for the All-Star game, they were like, are you bummed that you're not playing? He's all, well, I mean, yeah, but hey, look, the silver lining is, my wife doesn't have to take the kids out and find a hotel room, and, I get to spend more time with them. And I just kind of was reading between the lines, and it was almost like, I think Buster was actually very happy that he was in the All-Star game. I don't think it's not that he doesn't care for these things, but if he had an excuse to miss them, he'll take the excuse. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, if he didn't have that thumb injury, he definitely would have played. He wouldn't have opted out or anything. But it kind of could tell, guy's been around that long and doesn't seek the spotlight. He's all, I'm good being home. I don't, because they asked him, well, aren't you going to travel there at least and like show up and be part of the festivities? Like, no, I'm just going to stay home. He's like, oh, okay. Because, there are other players like Gosman who, of course, wasn't going to play because he started on this Sunday. He still went. Now, granted, that was his first All-Star appearance, so he was like, probably a kid in a candy store. For Buster, it's like old hat.
Yeah, you got a great game to cover by getting all the juicy stuff with Kapler and then Buster coming out. Like, you totally just lucked into the game you happened to be covering, had all that good stuff ahead of time. So that had to have been fun to be able to report on that in person and see these guys up close again. I noticed it was so funny. John Miller, during the broadcast, brought up that he was talking to Brandon Crawford on the field, and the T-shirt Crawford was wearing, he brought it up. And then it's funny because I was like, oh, wait a second. I saw a picture of that conversation. Yeah. Because you actually were able to get down there and be in the dugout and do the things that, you used to be able to do when you're covering a ball game. It was fun to be able to see that. And it was, you had all the good factors coming in for the Giants, with them winning the day before. And the Nationals, I don't know if you remember, they blew an 8-0 lead the night before this game.
The night before. Mm-hmm.
And Kapler talked about that guy, the pitcher who hit a grand slam, and the reaction. And really, it was nice. Excuse me. It was nice to get Kapler a little more humanized than we've been able to since he's been the manager, because COVID's been a thing since he was the manager. So it was really cool that, like, during the pregame stuff, that you guys were able to get that kind of, like, stuff out of him and humanize him a little bit. Because I've said it to you before. So far I like Kapler as what kind of a man he seems to be and what kind of a leader he seems to be.
Yeah, they asked him about that, and they said, "What'd you think about that kid, that reliever who came up and it's his first major league hit and everything? It was a grand slam. They came back from 8-0, the whole thing." And he's like, "I think it's fantastic." He's like, and here I am, manager of the Giants, but it's not a good thing, right? That the Padres came back and won. But he said from just a baseball story and a baseball standpoint, he's like, "I love stories like that." He's like, "I think it's fun. I think it's good for the game." So I do agree. I think that was a lot of nice candor from him. Like, even though it technically hurt the Giants in terms of the standings, it was just a good baseball story. And it was kind of fun to see, especially because he's the one who brought up, "Did you see his dad in the stands? He was going crazy." Like, so that was the connection that Kapler really loved to see, and why he loves baseball. So yeah, it was nice to see him talk about those things instead of just crunching numbers and who's going to be up and down and who's hurt and who's not and all that stuff. So that was pretty good. And there was even like a mistake he made, because they said they called him out on Lamont Wade being in the lineup, but that Ruff was actually in the lineup, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry guys, I think I missed that." So like he forgot to send out an update or something in the lineup card, because Lamont Wade had to go out with an injury, something that he's nursing. I forget what it was.
I think it's a hand from when he got hit the other day. Yeah,
so Darren Ruff was starting in his place. But it was like little things like that where, like, even the manager makes, little clerical errors like that. He's like, "I forgot to tell you guys. I'm so sorry. I apologize." He was like super embarrassed about it. But it's cool to see. The game itself, Logan Webb started. And we'll get to him later. That's funny. We talked about some stuff pre-show, which we find hilarious now. And they were going to limit his pitches to 45, and sure enough, he hit 45 right after 3 innings. But it's 3 innings of shutout ball, and it was great. They were up 3-0 at that point. But Jose Alvarez came in, and he's been really good as of late, but he just didn't have a good inning. He allowed 3 runs in the 4th to tie the game at 3. However, later, solo shots by Ruff, his 9th, and also Flores' 9th, in the 5th and 7th innings, respectively, ended the scoring. And then Casali, of course, had the home run earlier to give them the lead. And we'll talk about him, too. He's been very hot as of late. Like, exceedingly hot. Like, mind-blowingly, like, better than Buster Posey hot.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's the exact comp I was going to use.
It's really weird. And, we'll get to him in that section. And even though they won 5-3, that's what is matters. They were again 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. So it just seems like this little rut that they're in. They seem to be having a little bit of a mental block when they get runners on second or third. Game 2, Disco. Of course, you felt good about going into the last 2 games before the All-Star break with Tony Disco and Gosman going. They're 2 best pitchers right now, and Disclafani was great. He got the win, his 10th of the year. He's now 10-3. The Giants won that game 10-4, but it was well in hand before that. Crawford, who has been off this planet hot, was 3 for 3 with his 18th home run. Joey Bart, who had been called up for the taxi squad, did get the start in this game and was 2 for 5. Tyro Estrada was 4 for 5. I think like 2 or 3 infield singles and 3 RBI. And then Disco went 6, giving up only 3 hits. So again, Disclafani has just been amazing. I mean, on the same level as Gosman, and we'll get to those numbers later. But it was great. It was one of those nice, comfortable games.
Yeah, they jumped out with 2 big innings. They scored 3 in the first and 5 in the third. And Disco, or T-Bone, I guess as he likes to be called.
Apparently he doesn't like Disco. That's what the going is, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna call him Disco. He could have gone more than 6. He was cruising. He really was. He was owning the strike zone. He had struck out 6 in those 6 innings. He had only given up 3 hits, and I don't remember anything being too hard to contact. Juan Soto got shut down again by the by the Giants in that game.
Yeah.
So I think Kapler pulled him as a result of the score to get him that good feeling coming. Okay, you end your first half with a really good, strong performance, and it was really quality. It was one of those games where you just like to see no sweat whatsoever, even when um, even when the Giants gave up a couple runs there. When you said Alvarez, I think it was that. No, it wasn't
Yeah,
that.
Alvarez came in and gave up 3 in that fourth. Yeah.
Okay. No, it was
Because
Beatty. Beatty.
oh,
Was
sorry,
Beatty,
not Beatty.
remember?
I was
Yeah, it
saying,
was
I was just
Beatty.
mentioning that was the first game. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
Beatty
that's
comes
right. That's
in,
right.
and yeah, we were texting, and he could not find anything.
Oh, I
He
felt so
couldn't hit the
bad.
side of a barn. I know he was having problems.
I felt so bad for him because it's his first time back on the mound from the Tommy John, and he's
Yeah.
I've never been one to think that Beatty's going to be a superstar. Apparently, I criticized him one time, and his dad has blocked me on Twitter. So if you search his dad out, he's probably blocked you too. If just one criticism, I'm guessing, because I can't imagine that I ever tweeted at him or used profanity one time about Tyler Beatty. So
Yeah.
just humorous to me that his dad name searches him. Anyway, Beatty had no idea where the ball was going. He really didn't. His there was this one pitch on a 1-1 count that somebody missed, and other than that, it seemed like he had no idea where it was going the entire time. And it
Yeah,
was
for
with a
sure.
perfect spot though, with a 9-0 lead to bring him in. It was very very nice that the offense gave him that cushion and gave him that opportunity to come back, and he was optioned the next day.
He
So
was optioned the next day. Yeah, we were talking about that too. It was like, well, I guess if you're going to put him in for experimentation, 9-0 lead is a good time to do it because yeah,
perfect time.
it's like
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't blow
You get him confidence,
everything here.
or if he screws up, it doesn't hurt you too much, and that's
Yep.
kind of what happened. And it's I think that might be the last we see of Tyler Beatty at the major league level, but who knows, with injuries, anything could happen.
Yeah. It's funny that we're talking about, the bullpen, which has changed so much during the course of this year. How it was near the beginning of the season when they had like Gregory Santos and these other kids Santos is now suspended, of course, and these other kids who were put into these 1-run high leverage situations.
Yeah.
And now they're not even a thought for the roster right now. But I think we've seen a maturation. I mean, literally very quickly with Gabe Kapler. I don't know if it's a maturation. I shouldn't say that he was immature before. I think one of the biggest things, and the stats bear this out, he's letting the starters go longer. He's letting pitch counts get higher. He's not yanking pitchers on knee-jerk reactions. I mean, he seems to have settled down in terms of when he's replacing these guys. So I think it's been one of the reasons these starters have been excelling as well. There's more confidence in them.
Yeah, that comes from the kind of leader of men thing I talk about with Kapler. I don't talk up Kapler much. I still rip him apart when he makes dumbass decisions.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to because he's going to make dumbass decisions. But he has been able to manage the bullpen better. He's willing to give guys a shot. You're right. It's no longer. There's some other kid that was up earlier this year, and I can't remember his name anymore. And he was in high leverage. Camilo Duvall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're right. We don't see those guys anymore. The bullpen's got Alvarez, Brebbia coming out of it. It's like veteran guys at this point too. So having them know their roles better should probably make it easier for Kapler, and it's beautiful to see. That's why they could handle the bullpen game the night before when Webb threw 3 innings and they had to yank him. There was a quote after that first game. Casale said that Trey Turner came to the plate after Logan Webb had been yanked, and he's like, "Why'd you guys take that guy out? He was doing fantastic." And
why would they do that?
Right, but it was absolutely because he was on the pitch count and coming off being injured. But you're right, the bullpen, everybody, and their roles are starting to get a little better defined. I like what we've been seeing from a guy like Dominic Leone. He's been thrown into some good high leverage situations lately and come out of them on top too. So he's been, I recall seeing him come off the mound. It wasn't in this game. It might have been in the next game. I recall seeing him come off the mound all fired up after maybe stranding a runner or something like that. And so it's good to see Leone getting more because, yeah, you look at the next game, the Sunday game, and the bullpen was Leone, Rogers, McGee. So you've got guys, Rogers, McGee, Brebbia, Leone, uh, that we know we're going to see when the Giants are ahead in games, and we know kind of how they're going to run through their bullpen options at this point. And it's really strange to see because it's completely different guys than they started the season with. Jose Alvarez is like the only one around that they started the season with. Everybody else, Brebbia is a little surprise candidate. Berger's going to be back in the rotation, so it's pretty much it's a bunch of veteranish guys that have kind of assumed their roles, like Dominic Leone. Who the heck knew?
Yeah, Dominic Leone, and it's funny they had that guy Sherfy for like a hot second, and then he was DFA'd and claimed off wire by the Dodgers. It was like, so hopefully that he doesn't come back later down the stretch run and like close out a game or something like that.
That means he fell all the way through the entire waiver claim process.
Yeah.
And the last team that could have put a claim on him, because they're the second best
by record
in baseball, right, was the Dodgers, and they put the claim in on him. So he got past 28 other teams, and the Dodgers said, no, we're going to take this guy. It didn't dawn on me until right now when I'm happy to look at this detailed standard.
Yeah, I think it was just a cock block of
I do too.
To be honest, I do. I don't think LA was the only team that had their eyes on him. Oh, we got to get this Sherfy guy. It was like, they're hoping that he just clears waivers and they could stash him back in Sacramento. Let's screw Farhan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what happened.
But, it's fine. That's the whole game, right? I mean, that's what the Giants did in 2010 with like Cody Ross. I mean, you got to play that game. They wanted to do it so San Diego wasn't going to get him. And look what Cody Ross ended up doing for the Giants. So
it's funny to have it happen to the Giants because the Giants are good at playing that game. So to be on the other side of it, it's really kind of humorous to know that Sherfy got through 28 teams and the Dodgers are like, nah, we're going to screw with you.
Yep. Last game of the first half, they won 3-1. Gosman gets his 9th win. Crawford went 3 for 4, wrapping up just an incredible 2 weeks of baseball for him. Casale's 4th bomb of the year was a 3-run home run early in the game, and that's all they needed. Gosman, who went 6, gave up 1 run and 4 hits, but he did run into traffic again. Gosman, who's been fantastic this year, there's no short selling that. When he does get in trouble, it is like he'll be just cruising along, and then suddenly there's just a traffic jam in one inning. And that's what happened again in this game. And ends up, the bases are loaded with nobody out. And you're like, oh, God, here we go. This is going to be fun. And I think it was Leone who came in and ended up only... And there was not an error in there, but it was a missed double play because Lamont Wade Jr. dropped a double play ball.
Yeah.
It was a flip to, it was a perfect double play ball, and the flip was made back to him. Now, granted, Solano made a low throw, but it was still well within his grasp, and it just like went off the tip of his glove. And so that should have been, I guess that would have been the second out of the inning.
Right, and the run still would have scored. So, it boiled down to Leone, who ended up having to get 4 outs in the inning because of that.
Yeah.
Still totally did his job. And got the 3 outs that he needed to get and only allowed the runner from third to score, which, it was a perfect example and why Leone's so fresh in my head of the bullpen coming through in these situations. You're right, though. Gosman runs into these situations where there's suddenly traffic on the bases and, Gabe's out there like, okay, sorry, we're going to let you go one more. So maybe they got to curb that a little bit and yank him slightly before that happens. I don't know. That's a tough act to balance. It
is, because they had the bases loaded, and so they bring in Leone, and he gets that double play ball right away. So they were obviously going to give up the run for 2 outs, which makes sense. Lamont Wade drops that ball, so now instead of a runner at third with 2 outs, you have runners at the corners with 1 out. And that's where it got a little scary because you're like, okay, well, the tying run's on first with 1 out, but, they can pull within 1 here. But, yeah, it was a short fly ball after that, and the runner on third, I remember, went halfway because can't remember who the outfielder was. I think it was in right field. Had to really run in on, I think it was Duggar, maybe it was center. Duggar was running in. Yeah, and he had to make a running catch, but it was too shallow for him to score, and so he went back to third, and then he got the last guy. So you're right, he basically got 4 outs, but it doesn't go in the books. That's one of those weird oddities of baseball statistics, is that you have a statistic for almost everything out there, but there's no official statistic for an error committed on a not a probable double play, an absolute double play, right? Yep. So you could literally have the second baseman wing it to the first baseman, hit him square in the chest, and he drops it, with the guy 2 feet from the bag still, but it doesn't go as an error. It just goes as a
because
fielder's
nothing
choice.
beyond one out can be assumed is the rationale behind that.
I know, and it's so
I
weird
disagree
because
with that.
I
totally
disagree with that
Yeah,
because
totally.
the pitcher induced the double play, right? That's what they were hoping for. They induced the double play. There should have been 2 outs. Therefore, that runner who got to first should be an unearned run. Or if runs score after that point when there are 2 outs, those runs should be unearned as well. So like the runner on third, right? If he were to score on a sacrifice fly, that would have been the 3rd out of the inning, but now it's only the 2nd out, and then he scores. That should be an unearned run to Gosman. But that's not the way baseball stats work. And I guess it's even across the board. So you just got to make sure your defense is good to account for that. But it's interesting. Yeah, so they go ahead and close out that game 3-1. And they have that current 4-game winning streak right now. So what I have now is a couple of stats from basically all of their playoff years. Oh, we lost Eric there for a second. He's back. I wanted to look at their record compared to their playoff years. And so let's go ahead and start with probably record-wise the closest comp, right? And that's the 2016 team who went into the All-Star break with the best record in baseball. And we all know that they just hit the first place with a record of 57-33. Right now they are 57-32. So really essentially the same record, you know? They had a 6.5 game lead over the Dodgers at that point. And I remember it being big. I didn't realize it was quite that large. And obviously they lost that lead to LA and they ended up getting the wild card in 2016 and winning that wild card and then of course losing to the Cubs. But yeah, they just fell apart in that second half, and we'll get to that in a little bit. 2014, they won the World Series, got the wild card. At the break, they were 53-43, second place, a half game back of LA. Very similar in 2012, they were slightly fewer games played, 46-40, only 6 games above 500, but still in second place, only a half game back of the Dodgers. They ended up, of course, winning the division in 2012. And then in 2010, when they also won the division, they were 47-41, 6 games above 500 again, in fourth place, believe it or not. But everyone was tightly packed, 4 games behind San Diego. So there you go. Out of all their playoff years, this is the best record the Giants have had at the break. It's pretty promising.
Yeah, that 2016 number being like very similar in comparison surprised me. But we were talking about a pre-show, and this is definitely a different team than the 2016 team. That team we kind of knew was smoke and mirrors, and like, how are they doing this? Wow, the Giants are way out in front, the surprise lead in baseball, and then they weren't, and nobody was shocked. This year, I think people would be shocked if the Giants were to suddenly falter and not win, because that 2016 team only won 30 more games after the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
So in like 2.5 months, they only won a month's worth of games. If you think about it.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it. They finished 4 games behind the Dodgers, so that's a 10-game swing, 10.5-game swing from the All-Star break to the end of the season. So hopefully they should outperform something like that. It's really heartening to see these. I had no idea 2012 even that they were 46-40 in second place. Like, my memory of the 2012 team is kind of, as the juggernaut of the 3. So
yeah, they won the division easily that year. So
yeah,
it's kind of weird.
Like going away like 10 games or something like that. So it really doesn't even like that was the year LA made the trade in August to get like Gonzalez, and they were here's when they're gonna, and Beckett, here's when they're gonna overtake the Giants, and then the Giants just said nope, forget it.
Yep.
And took off. So we hope that this team has the same kind of second half. I love seeing these numbers that I can't believe they're playing so good. I can't believe the Giants have the best record in baseball. I really can't. And it's crazy that the Dodgers are the second best record in baseball. Like, of all the teams, it's the freaking second place team in the Giants' own division. Like,
I know. Again, if the Giants were almost in any other division, they'd be leading by a hell of a lot more. I think as far as playoffs are concerned, you don't want the wild card. You do not want the wild card. You do not want the wild card. But if they do get the wild card, that I think of course, it's not a guarantee. It's never a guarantee to make the wild card. But as they sit right now, they're 9.5 games ahead of the Cincinnati Reds, who currently are the first team outside of the wild card race. right? You have the Padres that are there, which are 6 games back of the Giants. The Dodgers, of course, 2 games back. Those are the current 2 wild cards. But should the Dodgers win the West, the Giants have a 9.5 game lead over the Reds. I mean, stranger things have happened. Don't get me wrong. Look at the Padres collapse in 2010, right? Things have happened, but the Reds aren't exactly the team from history that scares me in terms of having a ridiculous second half coinciding with a monumental collapse by the Giants for that to happen. And I think the Phillies are even 3 games behind the Reds, so they have a 12.5 game lead on them. I mean, it's just one of those things where, the Giants are almost guaranteed, and that's why you see all these playoff percentages now. Like they're like at 98% now to make the playoffs. So I think as Giants fans, we can start mentally getting ready for like, holy crap, let's shoot for the freaking division, because that wild card game sucks. That just talk about all of your emotions wrapped up into one flipping game. Even though I'm sure they would try to line it up. Unless the West is going down to the last game of the season.
Well, I mean, and then
they would line up for Gosman, right?
Right. And then it's going to be against the Padres or the Dodgers, too. It's not like you're going to get to play the Reds. You're going to have to play the Padres or the Dodgers.
It's going to be the Padres or the Dodgers in that wild card game. I know, and that's what's so freaking scary about it, because it's going to be Yu Darvish or Walker Buehler or Clayton Kershaw or, it's like, holy crap, Just those one game dice rolls suck. But one thing I wanted to do was look at, how did the Giants get here? Okay, great. Best record in baseball. How are they doing this? They only have 2 players that have enough at-bats to qualify for postseason batting awards. I mean, that's crazy. That's unheard of, right? Wow. But it's their player depth, of course, that has really been the key, right? Every single person has been a contributor to this. It's the sum of all their parts, not 1 or 2 stars. I mean, even Buster Posey, who really wasn't injured all year until this last couple of weeks, he just was getting a lot of off days, right? And Casale, who was, I mean, Giants fans were screaming for his head, going, why is he still on this team? And you're like, well, he's still on this team because their record when he catches is so good. And he knows, and he had the 5-6 shutouts in a row, and he knows how to handle this pitching staff. There's a lot of intangibles that they kept him on, but of course he's been hot as of late. But let's go ahead and break these numbers down. First of all, the biggest surprise, I think, is home runs. They lead all of Major League Baseball in home runs with 132. Now, for comparison, the 2016 team was second to last in home runs at 75. They had almost half the home runs that they do now. That's crazy. I mean, it's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. Slugging, best in the National League. OPS, best in the National League. Second in the National League in runs per game at 4.96, just behind the Dodgers. Batting average, which was on the floor after the first month and a half of the season. We talked about how they were hitting 225, 230, right? They've raised it to 245, third in the National League. What? Like, that's come out of nowhere. Third in the National League in on-base percentage. They lead the major leagues in pitches seen per plate appearances, and this is what Farhan loves. They call it time of possession. They're all about as many balls as you can see because it increases your chances of success. It wears down the pitcher. It gets you more walks, therefore on-base percentage, therefore scoring opportunities. It's this whole mathematical thing that they believe in, and it's obviously true. I mean, it's definitely come to fruition here. They take, on average, 4.03 pitches per plate appearance, which leads all of Major League Baseball. And here's a little stat that links to that. Walker Buehler, Joe Ross, Cole Irvin, Merrill Kelly, and Kwang Hyun Kim. Those are the only 5 starters all year to complete 7 innings against the Giants, and only Ross and Irvin got through to the 8th inning. The Giants lost all 5 of those games. All the other games, they've gotten the starter out earlier. So there definitely is a key to getting those starters out, especially if they're on. But even if you take more pitches from a starter who's doing well, you're still going to increase your chances of getting to those pens, which traditionally for most teams are weaker than your frontline starters.
The Giants are doing what I feel like so many times when we're watching the playoffs, it's the team. One year it was the Boston Red Sox. Another year it was the Kansas City Royals. the team that seems to stretch out at bats the most and make the opposing pitchers work the most, and then get into other teams' bullpens and attack those bullpens the most, were the ones that were winning those titles. And the Giants are very much like that kind of a team. It really strikes me as that. I was starting to notice just the other day. I was watching, I don't know which game it was, and the pitcher was at like 55 pitches, and the second batter in the Giants order was up for just the second time. So that's 11 batters in the order, and he was 55 pitches into the game. So it's an average of 5 pitches for every player. And that's a lot of stress, especially when there's runners on base. That's a lot of stress to put on a pitcher. The Giants are the type of team that can absolutely produce a rally out of nowhere, just based on a walk, just based on a guy like Wade or Belt going 0-2 to a walk. That could spark a Giants rally, and it has so far. It has at times this season. And It's scary for other ball clubs. And the numbers, they totally show it. It's amazing that, A, they haven't had a complete game against them, even in a 7-inning game. And B, that only, 5 pitchers have gone that deep, and that's 90 games they've played. So, the Giants' offensive philosophy so far, it's wonderful to see it working in action. It really is. The Giants are kind of like a machine, and they work pitchers, and this is why they get to the bullpens quicker, and this is why they are first in home runs, because they find those pitches to hit. So, I mean, all these stats bear it out. I love seeing the stats back up what the Giants are doing.
And that 2016 team, of course, we were like, maybe it's after the fact, we were like, maybe it was a house of cards in it. We were waiting for it to fall. But I looked back at the stats at the All-Star break. So this is not at the end of the season. This is actually at the All-Star break, when their record was essentially the same as it is now. Not only were they second fewest home runs in Major League Baseball, right now they're second in runs scored. Then they were 11th in runs per game. Now they're third in batting average. Back then they were fifth. They were second in OPS, or they're second OPS now. They were 8th in the NL in OPS. It goes on. And as far as pitching is concerned, of course, Giants traditionally, their playoff teams have always been dominated by pitching. We're always going to remember Matt Cain and Timmy and Matt and Vogie and all these guys, right? And their pitching is even better this year, which I don't think anyone expected as good as it would be. But right now, they got the most saves in all of baseball. Of course, that comes with wins. The most shutouts with 11. You know how many shutouts they had at the break in 16? 3. Wow. Okay, so 11-3. The best whip in all of baseball at 1.11. They were 4th in whip then. Second in Major League in ERA at 3.26. Back then, they were 5th in ERA. Third in batting average against at 220. Back then, they were 6th in batting average against. And the Pen now has the second lowest ERA in the National League, and the starters' ERA is actually 3rd best in the National League. So the Pen has actually put a peg up on the starters, which we did not expect that to happen. That was one of the biggest weaknesses after the first, 6-8 weeks of the season that we talked about, that the Pen, which was near the bottom at that time, we're like, man, if this Pen could come together, but everything else stays the same, this team's going to be nearly unbeatable. And that's kind of what's happened. The starters really haven't skipped a beat. The batting has only gotten better, which we expected, right? We thought that they were underperforming in terms of their hitting. But their pen has just absolutely shaped up. So, and now they have the 3rd best strikeout to walk ratio in all of baseball as well. So when you look at these mainline statistics and how they compare to the 2016 team, I think this is where I can confidently say that that team in 16 had a lot of lucky breaks go their way, a lot of close games that they won. This team is different. They've won. Their run differential is so much higher at over 100 runs. Back then it was 45. Their shutouts are way higher. All of these stats, right? This just shows you how consistent and how dominant this team is. And so I don't expect them to fall off too much. If they did, and let's say the Giants are only 500 in the second half, well, hey, that's 90 whatever, something wins, and it's probably going to get them a wild card.
The pitching, the 11 shutouts, the Giants didn't have a single shutout last year. And to have 11 shutouts this year at the All-Star break is kind of mind-boggling. I'm pretty sure.
I know. It's a little scary.
Like yeah, and Casale's caught, I think, the majority of them almost. There was some stat I saw with, their record with Casale starting behind the plate is some like crazy number that's skewed in the win column. And you mentioned, and the bullpen is just funny though, because Posey and Casale are both performing. But you mentioned the bullpen again. We were bemoaning losses back in April and May. We're looking at games like in Miami or in Philly, or even in Washington, where we're
Oh, yeah.
or Pittsburgh.
What
Pittsburgh
if?
was
What
another
if?
team,
What if?
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the bullpen totally screwed them. My gosh, we kept doing the Giants are this good, but they could be even better. And now that the bullpen has risen to be with the rest of the team, they're even better. And it's fun to watch them self-correct here.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you need to do is scout your own team and find your own weaknesses to plug those holes. And the Giants have really tried to do that so far, and it's really been impressive to watch. I mean, I thought that was going to be the weak link, and I thought we'd still constantly be talking about games that they blew, but that doesn't feel that way anymore. It really doesn't. There are
No.
pitchers here and there that come in, and you're like, really, why is Littell pitching again? But other than that, it's really like, okay, this guy pretty much has gotten it every time out lately. So I think the Giants have this, and it's again reflective in why they're the best team in baseball. And I mean, that's crazy. They're top 3 in so many stats between hitting and pitching. There can't be another team that's up there like that. The Dodgers and Astros can't be that good either.
No, the Dodgers and Astros are definitely up there, but not as, in the top 3 of so many different stats. The Giants are really there. I mean, and like I said, we knew the Giants hitting was going to come around at some point, and that's one of the weaknesses I want to address. But the Giants, just for example, just in July are hitting 284 as a team, which leads the National League. So, they're hitting the ball better. But when you look at the batting average with runners in scoring position, the Giants are actually 9th in the National League. There's 15 teams, right? So they're near, they're in the bottom half at a 249 clip. To give you reference, the Dodgers lead the National League with a 268 batting average with runners in scoring position. And they also lead the league in runs per game, just ahead of the Giants. So I think that's where that run differential really comes in. Well, and the 22-1 drubbing the Diamondbacks, where they hit 8 home runs, that didn't hurt either. But point being, this last couple weeks has been really rough with runners in scoring position. I just read all those stats to you from each game where it was like 3 for 16, 3 for 15, 1 for 7. I mean, if you add all that up, I'm sure they were hitting 200 or less over the last couple of weeks. 249 is still above their season total, but that's because you're generally going to hit a little bit better with guys in the stretch. But when you compare it to their contemporaries and other teams, they're definitely in the latter half of the league. So that, look, we're not here to complain, but if I'm going to point at one thing that they need to improve at this point, they've corrected the bullpen. There's really no glaring weaknesses on this team, I have to admit. I mean, there's nothing that you're like, oh, this is just, they're horrible in this department. Maybe stolen bases. I saw that. They're like near the bottom. But no one steals bases anymore. That's not the game, right? The Giants score 52% of their runs via the home run. It leads all of baseball in terms of the highest percentage. That's crazy. More than half their runs come via the home run. They don't care. They don't give a crap about stolen bases. But I definitely, the runners in scoring position, if they could just bump that up a couple of points, that's going to drive a few runs in a week, which, would have made a difference in that Cardinals series, would have made a difference in that LA series, especially in that LA series. That was frustrating.
It's funny because you said their batting average for July is 248, and the batting average of runners in scoring position is 249. So
no, it's 284 for July.
Oh Jesus! Oh, forget it.
Yeah, just for the month. I mean, granted, it's only like 10 games.
Doesn't make sense.
But...
Well, my point was going to be that they're performing average and just not stepping it up in the pressure situations where they should be. And no, they're just not stepping up in the pressure situations they need to be.
Yeah,
it's very true. And it's. You have to wonder, you're right, that is a weakness because you have to have that doubt that seeds in the back of your mind of, oh gosh, the Giants score all their runs on home runs. Is that sustainable? Are they going to be able to handle that in the playoffs? Are they going to be able to win games like that? But so far it seems to be that way, and I don't fear them having a Yankees type collapse in the postseason where they just don't where they just don't perform if they don't hit homers. I think the Giants can still score runs in many different ways. They had that game, the second game of the Nats series, that 10-4 game. There wasn't a homer in that game until Crawford homered, and they already had a 9-0 lead. Yeah, they had like an 8-0 lead, I think, when he homered. So, they scored all those runs without, and it felt like at the end of that Nats series, specifically with that Saturday game, that they were finally getting out of that rut of hitting with guys in scoring position. Even the Casale homer the next day to give Gausman the 3-run cushion came with a runner in scoring position, so it felt like, okay, they're still doing this, because after that the Giants didn't get many runners on as it was. So it was something that they did kind of improve upon. But you're totally right. That's the one weakness, and the fact that they have one weakness is, that's their one weakness.
That's okay. I can't believe we're talking about the Giants having one weakness right now. It's this small. And it's this small. Yeah, it's not even like the worst thing in the world.
No.
Considering they hit so many bombs, right?
Yeah.
It kind of makes up for some of that lack of batting average and runners.
Guys on first are in scoring position. I mean,
yeah, there you go. Guys at home plate are in scoring position.
Absolutely.
All right, so as we've hit the traditional halfway point, even though, we're more than 81 games in, who's your first half MVP for the Giants?
It's going to be obvious. It's Brandon Crawford. I mean, they're just not where they are without him. The fact that he plays every day and is playing at the level he's at is just, it's totally unexpected, and it's totally to be kind of, it's impressive. I can't think of the word I was thinking of, but it's celebrate, I guess, but it's impressive. So it's got to be Crawford, because it feels like he's put the team on his back at times, and every time you think he's going to cool off, he doesn't. So I think he should be in the MVP discussion in the league, and I think he might finish in top 10 in voting if he keeps up what he's done so far.
Yeah, I think it is possible if he does keep that up. I mean, he's up to a 289 average. I mean, he was at 250 like 4 weeks ago. He has been on, and we'll get to the who's hot later, he's been on an incredible streak right now. Obviously, 18 home runs. His career high is 21, so I don't imagine he won't be smashing that. He is technically fifth in RBIs, or sixth in RBIs, but that's because there were 5 guys tied at 60, and he was at 57. So he's three behind the league leader, right? This is Brandon Crawford. He's almost leading the major leagues in RBI. What? Like, that doesn't even make sense. And then, like you just said, the durability, the longevity, the consistency, he's out there every time. He has a high, runs saved statistic. I went into StatCast and was looking at average barrel percentage. He's 9th in all of Major League Baseball in barrel percentage at 10.1%. Shohei Ohtani leads at 15%. And you see all the assumptions in between, like a Vlad Guerrero and others like that in between, from like 2 to 8. But to see Brandon Crawford sitting there at number 9, and his average exit velocity is ridiculous. I mean, this is a supposed aging shortstop who's not really known for his power, and he's barreling the ball this year and hitting it a ton. So, yeah, I agree. He's my first half MVP as well. I think if it was a month ago, I probably would have leaned towards Gausman at that point, because he's been their Cy Young, and so. But when you just think of just one player on the team, I got to go with Crawford, because he's an everyday player. And that's the other thing, right? You're out there every single day. Pitcher, you're out there every 5 days. But definitely for pitcher of the year, I'd go with Gausman so far, just because he's been so consistent. But yeah, who would have thought that? So I thought, or I didn't think this. You thought, Eric, this is credit to you. What kind of predictions did we make earlier in the season during our season preview? Now, we've highlighted our win total predictions, and Willie and I were in the 70s. I was 75, I think. Willie was like 73. You're 88, so you're the closest to probably reality if they get into the 90s, which they should. But there's a lot of other ones that we look back here, and first of all, Vegas had them at 75.5 wins, so it definitely looks like they're going to pass that. I was going to reference that too. Like, wow, they're going to kill that. So here we go. Who will lead the team in home runs? I went with Yaz with 28. Okay, he's not bad. I think he's got 12 right now, but he's not hitting 28 unless he has a ridiculous second half. Willie went with Wilmer Flores with 30. So he's got 9. He's got 21 to go. Probably not going to lead the team. And you went with Austin Slater, who's been a pinch hit home run machine. You guessed 27 from him. So
he also has 9.
And he has 9, yeah. So, yeah, all of our predictions are going to be wrong unless something crazy happens. And the closest one would be Yaz, because he's got 12 and he plays a little more often than those other two. But it looks like it's probably going to be Brandon Crawford because of his consistency and his playing time. Buster has 12, but his playing time has dropped off the shelf. Longo was up there at the beginning of the season, but again, same thing, injury concerns. He's so far behind now with 9 or 10 or something like that.
Yeah,
So he's got a long way to go, just like those other guys. So we're all wrong. We're not no one chose Crawford.
If Yaz can hit a streak, Willie's the only one. No, not Willie. You're the only one who could maybe come out on top there. Yaz could hit a streak.
Mine has the highest chance of happening, but it has a very low chance of happening, period. So
I don't know. Crawford's at 18.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll get to 30?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
And again, I'm not trying to have my pessimistic fan side come out but it's sustainability, right? Like, he's had an incredible first half. I don't expect him to keep that production up, and that's fine if he hits 240 the rest of the way with maybe 5 more bombs. Overall, that would be 23 home runs, a career high. He'd still be hitting like 260 for the year. I mean, all these things would be incredible for him. But he's on pace to hit 30 plus. I don't think he's going to reach it. He could, but that would surprise me. But yeah, I don't think he will. But
Crawford has 7 steals.
Does he?
Yeah.
I know Slater has like 9. I remember when he stole that bag the other night, I was like, whoa, 9 steals for Slater already?
He's the only one ahead of Crawford. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Crawford hasn't been caught yet either, so he
chooses his spots.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Sneaky speed. He'll be 10-10 this year.
Yeah.
So wins, all of us agree with Gausman. You chose the high water mark, which is probably more likely than any of these numbers with 15. Willie went with 10. I went with 12. He currently has 9. So he's forecast at his current rate, of course, to be probably around 16 or so. So you might be right there with Gausman getting around 15. So I think, we're okay on that. Now, here's the funny thing. We all went with Gausman for wins, but none of us went with Gausman for ERA. Because you look at the guy's career, right? And he's got like a career 4-something ERA. So you're not thinking, and the Giants just signed him to an $18 million qualifying offer, having a mid-4s ERA, right? So you're like, okay, he's serviceable. He'll be like, a decent pitcher or whatever. But when we were asked who's going to lead the team in ERA, listen to these responses. I went with Logan Webb with a 4.2. Willie went with Cueto with a sub-3, which I think even you and I, Eric, at that time were like, I don't know about that. And you also went with a Logan Webb with a lower ERA than I predicted, a 3.5. Now, Logan Webb obviously has been hurt, so that's been the main problem with this ERA forecast. But I tell you what, this is still all three of us. Well, Willie with a sub-3 would be the closest to who might actually lead the team in terms of the number. But here, you and I are thinking 3.5 to 4.2, and right now you have Gausman with a 1.73 or 1.78, and then you have Desclafani with like a 2.68. So I mean, you could have one of these guys easily finishing with a I shouldn't say easily. Could be finishing with a sub-3 ERA, but if Gausman keeps this up, it could be sub-2.5. That'd be pretty incredible.
That would be. DeGrom's the only thing standing in his way from a Cy Young award this
year. Easily, right? I mean, that's the thing. If DeGrom was not, didn't exist, Gausman would probably be your leading candidate for Cy Young award winner right now. But, DeGrom's on another planet. He is this age's Sandy Koufax or Bob Gibson, probably more apt.
Absolutely.
He is just so far above his contemporaries. It's just disgusting. Batting average, I went with Brandon Belt, 305. Willie went with Yaz at 300. And you went with Donovan Solano, which, hey, he hit over 300 last year, right? With a 330 clip. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be wrong with those numbers.
Our batting average stunk there. I mean, Buster's got the team lead at 328, if that counts, because he doesn't qualify. You mentioned only 2 guys would qualify for the batting title, and my guess is it would be, Crawford and Yastrzemski, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and none of those guys. I mean, I was so far off of Solano. He's not hitting this year.
He just, yeah, that was been really odd. He's really dropped off. And obviously his defense is not good. So it's kind of like you had him in for a stick, but like right now you're kind of like, he's not picking it up, right? Literally and figuratively.
Yep.
He's like, there's some of those plays he makes out there where I'm like, you don't quite look like a major league infielder. He's not quite there with his defense, but you're hoping that he was going to be above 300 this year, and he's just not. So that's pretty much it for the stat predictions in terms of individuals. As far as division winners and all that, we're not that far off. I think we're pretty good. We all went with the Dodgers for the West, which they still could. The East, Willie with the Mets, you and I with the Braves. The Braves are still in striking distance. The Central, I went with Milwaukee, who is leading right now. You and Willie went with St. Louis. Again, still in the hunt, because that NL Central and NL East, they just suck. I'm sorry. Except for Milwaukee. Milwaukee's pretty good.
Compared to the NL West stinks, though.
Yeah. Wild card no order, but one wild card, we all went Padres. That's fairly likely at this point. The chances of them overcoming a 6-game deficit and a 4-game deficit over both teams, like they have to get exceedingly hot, and then the Dodgers and Giants have to play down. Both of them have to play down. Again, not impossible for the Padres to win the West, but they're more likely to be wild card. The other wild card, the Mets or the Braves, so kind of interchanging that East play. The West, Willie and I went with Oakland. You went with the Angels. The Angels are definitely not going to be there. The Central, we all went with the White Sox. So that's looking pretty damn good right now. The East, the Yankees. All three of us took the Yankees, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
We don't have Boston anywhere on this list.
Nope. Boston's not even on a wild card. But I mean, Boston had the last 2 years have been horrible. So, and they didn't seem to make any earth-moving changes. So
right. I don't know how they do that. The Red Sox are this type of team that like can stink for like a year or two, and then suddenly they're a juggernaut again. Like they mentioned it last night in the All-Star game. If it wasn't for the Giants, the Red Sox would be the story of baseball. But because of the Giants, they're not.
Yeah.
Go Giants.
Go Giants. I know they've been touted as like the number 2 surprise team this year behind the Giants.
Yeah,
so
they totally are. I mean, nobody predicted things coming from them.
Nope, they're not even on our list anywhere here. So the AL wild card, we all went with one of them being Houston. The other, you and Willie went with Tampa Bay. I went with Minnesota. So I didn't have Tampa Bay anywhere on my list, which, that's probably a mistake. NL champ, I went with the Padres, which, again, these are all possibilities now with wild card. You two went with the Dodgers. For the AL champ, I went with the Yankees. Willie went with the Yankees. Probably not going to happen. Not impossible, but probably not. And you went with the White Sox. And World Series champs, again, me and Willie went with the Yankees, and you went with the Dodgers. So most likely Eric's got probably the more probable playoff column going on right now, but I don't think we were like terribly off on most of our predictions. They've been okay.
Not really. I'm way off on the Angels, but who the hell knows if they catch fire?
Yeah, they're around 500. So anyway, just a fun first half look to see, where we are and to see where these teams are going to be going. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the All-Star Weekend. We had the Home Run Derby on Monday night. Pete Alonso successfully defended his Home Run Derby crown. That first round I thought was the best out of all of them. That was a lot of fun. I think 2 or 3 of those rounds or competitions got down to just one home run difference. Of course, Shohei and Soto went tied twice and had to go to a 3 swing off, which was pretty cool. Soto nailed all 3 and Shohei missed the first one. But that was fun, man. That was what's crazy, Eric? Like and we all used to play home run derby when we were kids, obviously. In batting practice, I've tried. So there's been only 2 times where I was exposed to a very nerve-wracking situation in which I could hit home runs in a major league park or close to a major league park. So one of them was when I was playing amateur ball. I had hit a couple home runs in the season, and home runs were fairly rare in amateur ball, just plain and simple. And so I was invited to participate in the Home Run Derby, and it was at the San Jose Giants Stadium, right, where the San Jose Giants play. And they just had a dude behind a L screen throwing. And I can't even remember how many swings I got. I want to say it was 10 swings, maybe 15. It was the traditional, like, every non-home run is an out. So you get, I think it was like 10 outs. You know, every home run doesn't count as an out. You get to go. And I mean, everyone in the stands watching, and this guy just throwing BBs from like 40 feet. I locked up. I just locked up. I was fouling them off in the cage. I hit like dribblers down the third base line. I think I hit one fly ball. I just was nervous as hell. You know what I mean? And to see these guys go out there in front of TV like that. I mean, granted, they already play in front of team or fans and TV, so they're used to it on a certain level. But to see them, especially a guy like Pete Alonso, just relax and bob his head and just be like totally into it and just
He's
like
so into it,
crush them like they're flies. I mean, it's just incredible that they could do it with such consistency. And the other time I had it, I actually participated in a batting practice at Candlestick Park. It was one of those fantasy batting practice things. This was 1996. And I had Tito Fuentes feeding me balls off of the pitching machine. And I actually hit one. I hit one home run over left field. But the rest of them, were whatever. And so it was to see these guys walk up there with wooden bats and hit them 500 feet was just, and like 25 of them, 28 of them, 35 of them, I think Alonso got in one round in like 3 to 4 minutes is just stupid. But I always love watching it every year. It was a lot of fun. My family doesn't understand me why I like this stuff. They leave me alone and go do other things. But
my wife called me a 10-year-old boy during the home run derby because of how I kept reacting. I'm like, holy crap, did you see that one? And oh my God, did you see where that one went? And holy man, I didn't think anybody could hit at that because like Story kept peppering the back concourse at one point.
Yeah.
And it was just over and over and over again. Like there was these runs for each guy that were just absolutely impressive. Juan Soto, the 3 swings, I saw a video clip today of Vlad Guerrero talking to him right before he went up to take those 3 swings, saying, just take your time. And he was able to square each one of those up, and those were just absolute bombs. And then Ohtani bent over because he was exhausted. You could tell he was so gassed already. But he still then made that late charge to tie Soto to force those swing offs. Yeah. That happened. And then Alonso hitting 35 in the first round, he decides to go sit at the desk and talk to Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez while Salvador Perez has his round. And Salvi hits 28 while they're talking.
Yeah, the second most.
It shocked the crap out of me. I'm like, I totally thought Salvador Perez was going to fall on his face. I was like, really? What is he doing in this derby? Like, the one thing that this derby was missing, the 2 things that this derby were missing were Guerrero and Tatis. And I could have done, no offense, Matt Olson, I could have done without you. No offense, Salvador Perez, I could have done without you. You put on a good show. That was cool, but I could have done without you. I wanted to see those big boys. But, I agree. See Soto hit 520 was really fun. And then Pete Alonso. I mean, you can't bet against this guy. Apparently, it's just his thing. You can tell that he's made this his thing and that he's practiced it.
I know. They're interviewing him. He's like, this is what I did like in high school and college and in backyards. He's like, I believe I'm the best power hitter there is. This is what I live for. It's like he loves home run derbies, period. Yeah, it's like his thing. It's his thing. So it's like, okay. I mean, you obviously are good at it.
I think every time I ask him, he will say yes. And, we have a possibility. I truly believe we have a possibility of Alonso winning like 3, 4, 5 straight home run derby.
Yeah, he might be the home run derby guy. Like he might just become that guy for a while until he finally just gets tired of it or something, or gets hurt or something.
Well, there's guys like Ohtani and Gallo that you expected to just be fantastic because they hit bombs and they hit the ball so hard, but it's Alonso who can repeat the same motion over and over and over again who ends up winning it.
I think, the funny thing about Ohtani is that despite, he leads obviously all of Major League Baseball with 33 home runs. There's no doubt about his power and his ability to cover the plate, but I think that's it. I think he's that traditional kind of Japanese player that really covers the plate well and will put his body in awkward positions to reach balls. And you saw him do that during the home run derby where there was a pitch outside and he'd still reach for it. And you're like, while other guys were just letting him go. And it's like, save your energy. Don't swing at crap you can't hit out of the yard. And he was consistently driving it into the ground or hitting line drives the opposite way on bad pitches. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things where he's a great hitter, but maybe he's just not built for the home run derby. Not that he had a bad total. He didn't. And then he hung there with Soto all the way to the end. And I think in another day he could at least get to the final against Alonso. But at this point, I don't think anyone can easily beat Alonso. He's just ridiculous. Like, no one came close to him.
Yeah, he's going to win a few straight. This is his thing. It's like the guy who's great at the slam dunk contest. You know what I mean? Or the guy who's great at the long distance driving contests. It's that guy. That's his thing. He's going to be known as the home run derby guy.
So the All-Star game itself, of course, was last night. You mentioned the horrific jerseys. We talked about this last week. We showed them online. I was just pissed off that this is the direction that baseball has decided to go. I hope they change their mind for next year. And there were so many people on social media tweeting out photos of all the All-Star games in the past, especially the really older, like 60s, 1970s first color photos, where you see that mosaic, as they like to say, Marty Lurie likes to say, the mosaic of different colors standing on the line. I love that. And I talked about this last podcast. I love seeing your guy. I love seeing the guy you recognize, right? The Derek Jeter, the Reggie Jackson, the whatever. I miss that. Now it looks like Space Jam. They're all out there in these stupid uniforms looking the same. And you're like, when you look them on the line, you're like, I don't know who that is. And they have to zoom in and go, wait, what logo and 3-letter code is mixed up together on that? Oh, it says STL. Oh, it's St. Louis. Oh, okay. Like, it's so flippin' annoying. I would love to just have, the Pirates are in their black and yellow, the Giants are in their black and orange, the Dodgers are in their blue, the Reds and the Cardinals are in their red. I want to see that. I want to see that. And I hated this. I hated it with a passion. And I hope no one bought the jerseys. And I hope that baseball goes, that wasn't a good idea. But,
Well, it's as a fan, when I did a quick look up at the television, if I happen to be looking down, it took me a moment to process who was at the plate. Because especially with the American League, these guys are all dressed in this all blue, this dark blue. And guys with darker colored skins, it took a minute to figure out who that guy was and who that guy was, if you didn't see the logo on the chest right away.
Yeah.
It was so, I hated them. The game itself, it was fun. I loved all the mic'd up moments. I love how they're in Freddie Freeman's ear as he's striking out. They're like, what are you looking for here, Freddie? And he's like, fastball. And then he throws him the slider. And he gets out of the inning. He's like, okay. I thought it was a great way. Seeing, talking to Tatis at the moment of Guerrero's homer, I think was the moment of the All-Star game. It absolutely was.
Speak of the devil, here we go. So, the American League, of course, won their 8th consecutive All-Star game, so it's getting old. But the whole series of games has been defined by streaks. This has been a streak by the American League for about 25 years now, where they've won almost every single one. And the National League had the streak in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I think the American League overall is only like 3 games ahead of the National League over 91 All-Star games, but they've won 8 in a row. This is the moment you're talking about with Fernando Tatis mic'd up at shortstop and Vlad Guerrero Jr. at the plate.
Healthy and happy.
Wow! Guerrero Jr. has doubled the lead. Say something to him on his way around.
Quédate parado un rato más.
Wow. That is the 200th home run in All-Star game history, and you could have chopped that up into 2.
Yeah, that was a home run derby home run. That wasn't like a regular game home run. That thing was crushed.
That was absolutely tattooed. And so, these All-Star games are funny because players are not in there for very long. And so the player who pitches the first inning, if they hold the lead the entire game, they get the win, right? You don't have to go 5. So Shohei Ohtani gets the win. But, I mean, it was so cool to see this dude. And you called it, Eric. You said they were going to make a rule.
Yeah.
Where they would not lose the DH. And, and I was like, well, maybe they'll, put him in the lineup and then they'll put him into pitch at the very end of the game so they don't lose the DH. Nope. Kevin Cash was like, we're starting him. I know what Major League Baseball wants. I know what the fans want. I know what the world wants. And they were right. So I'm sure there was dialogue with the front office going, hey, so are we really going to lose the DH if we take him out? They're like, nah, it's exhibition.
Well, they took the 3-batter rule out, so they could do whatever they wanted, They
could do whatever they want. They could make 4 strikes for a strikeout if they wanted, right? I mean, they could do whatever they want. So yeah, they made that exception to the rule. And he pitched the first inning. He hit in the home run derby, and he hit leadoff for the American League. I mean, that's wow. Wow. And to think that he's earning $300,000 this year, it's just, $600,000. Sorry, $600,000 a year is just incredible to me. It's like, what? This dude is worth millions upon millions. But he's out there with a smile on his face, repping his country and Major League Baseball. And it was a lot of fun to watch. And through his interpreter later in the game when they were talking to him in the dugout, they were like, hey, so tell us if this is true that Shohei doesn't take batting practice on the field. And it was like, nope, he just hits in the cage all year. So they said the last time he hit in the cage before the home run derby was spring training. Yeah. And you're just like, wait, what? What? Every player takes BP, not Shohei. And look what he's doing. Unbelievable.
Yeah, apparently that was the first time the day before they took BP since spring training. And it's weird because you'd think that a hitter would want to visualize the bombs. They want to see the ball going over the fence. They want to take that with them into the game, that kind of a feeling. And he's just, I guess, a tunnel vision kind of guy that stays in the cage. I get it. In the cage, you can totally work on specific things. Like the cage is the best place to work on bringing the ball back up through the middle. I mean, it just spatially, it just makes sense and it helps focus you into that way. And so you got to wonder if that's kind of why he does something like that. But he was the star of the show without even doing anything, and deservedly so, because he's doing things in the regular season that we've literally never seen anybody do. So it was really fun. I thought it was fun that Shohei Ohtani was the winning pitcher, Japanese. Vlad Guerrero Jr., born in Canada, raised in the Dominican, MVP. And Liam Hendricks got the save, and he's from Australia. I mean, that was just so cool how the whole global aspect of baseball was on display last night. And, it was probably the biggest audience. I haven't looked at the numbers, but it was probably the biggest audience. So it was a lot of fun. Liam Hendricks at the end there he was fantastic television. He was so funny.
It's like what I'm calling up to play. I don't know how you know this. So Eric and I have not shared these everything here, but yeah, Liam Hendricks. So we saw that Fernando Tatis was mic'd up, Freddie Freeman was mic'd up, Albies was mic'd up. So they had players throughout the game that were mic'd up, and most of it was entertaining. But you could tell sometimes it's hard for the players to talk back or answer questions right in the middle of a pitch or a play. And a lot of them were wearing all those chains, which kept bumping against the lavalier mic, which was like, that's not really working out. Well, they mic'd up for the first time I can remember an actual pitcher. I mean, this is a dude that's throwing every pitch. Well, unfortunately, he had the earpiece in. You could see it on the mound, but apparently they're having technical difficulties. He could not hear Joe Buck and John Smoltz, but we could hear everything Liam Hendricks was saying. And so here it was, a thing of beauty from Liam Hendricks.
God damn it. Utility player. God, unless you can. God damn, fuck this. What do people want? You're mic'd up.
No, it's not working.
Oh, really?
I haven't heard a thing already.
What do you want to do?
Chase 2, shake the same.
I'm sorry, it's just the best. So he's assuming, because he can't hear them, that they can't hear him. So he's just letting loose his normal, goddamn mother. Oh, man. It was great, too, because I'm watching this live, and I'm like, oh, my God. And someone was tweeting out that meme of the guy with the control button, the mute or do not mute. It was like Major League Baseball production manager, and it's like mute or do not mute, because it's like, it's so great, but it's so profane. Like, we can't just keep doing this.
It was late at night at the East Coast, so kids were asleep by then.
You're very right. Yeah.
That was great though, and I loved how at the end when the catcher came out and pointed out that he's mic'd up, and we heard him say, "Oh, it's not working."
No, it's not working.
And then he immediately So he says to the catcher what set of signs they're going to use too. He said 2 shakes and something else, and it was just so it was neat to hear that little inside baseball. I love that kind of crap. Now that it's an exhibition, I love that crap. Mike, you're right though. It's the first time I ever see a pitcher getting mic'd up before, because you don't want to talk to a pitcher while he's pitching. The guy's got a lot of crap to worry about.
Got a lot of stuff he's thinking about.
Yeah, it's fine if you're talking to Mookie Betts in the outfield. It's totally different if you're talking to, Max Scherzer on the mound. That's not happening.
I mean, I know it's just an exhibition game, right? But like, what if the two-way communication was working? And what if the conversation just, I don't know, threw him off his game, and then suddenly he walks 2 and allows 2 hits. Suddenly you got traffic on the bases and they make a pitching change, and then Nash Lee comes back and wins the game. Then you're like, whoa, was it that caused that? I don't know.
Right. I mean, you'd feel like crap if you were Hendricks then, So it probably worked out better for him. He's always been, he's a well-traveled guy. So it was fun. I always enjoy the All-Star game. And I think the thing that we always forget going into these All-Star games is, there's offense galore, but pitching is better than it's ever been. And it shows in these All-Star games. The pitchers pound the strike zone. The innings don't last long. And, that game was over in 3 hours flat, and I think
it was 3 hours, a very fast All-Star game. It was incredible. I was like done with it. And I'm like, wait, it's like 8:00. What the heck? Yeah. I'm done. So that was really weird. You're right though, late on the East Coast. But it was funny because Mike Zunino came up as a hitter for the American League. And, obviously I'm not following the Rays closely, but they start flashing his stats and the dude's hitting 198. I know he's hit a lot of bombs and that's why he made it, but I'm sitting there going, never in my life would I think I would see someone who made the All-Star team hitting under 200. Like that, I know the game today has changed. It's all about strikeouts and home runs, and average doesn't mean what it used to. But you still don't think an All-Star player will be hitting under 200. And what does he do? Hits a home run.
I mean, no doubter, too. That thing.
Yeah, you're just like opposite field, too. And you're just like, I don't know. I don't understand this game anymore. I don't get it. A guy hitting 198 makes the All-Star team and hits a bomb. Okay, yeah, it makes sense to me. Whatever. It's just crazy. I apologize for my dog barking in the background there. No one else is home, so I can't shut her up. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the MLB draft. I don't want to go, player by player because we're getting pretty late here. But what was pretty interesting is the Giants took 9 of their first 10 players were pitchers. The Angels took 20 of their first 20 as pitchers. LA did a very similar thing. I think 18 of 20 as pitchers. So I don't know. What do you have an explanation for this, Eric?
No, I don't. I don't know. It's I don't know. It's some strategy that Farhan seems to have. I guess they feel like they can find value in hitters. Just anywhere else, I feel like they just feel like they can find hitters anywhere off the street, and pitchers need to be groomed. The Angels doing the same thing tells me that there are other teams that are taking this tact, and if Farhan's out ahead of it, then cool. And they did the same thing that they did the last couple of years with Farhan drafting. They went college pitcher for the first 3 guys, and then they drafted a high school kid in the 4th round. And they will probably try to use more bonus money to entice him to sign with them, because the college guys usually don't cost as much, and you need to entice a kid not to go to college. Basically, you're paying him not to go to college to come play for you instead. So they'll probably go that tack. So, it was a similar draft to what they've had aside from the pitcher thing. And I don't know. It's weird. It's definitely weird. So we'll see if it works in 5 years.
In 5 years or so.
Right. I mean, how are we going to know if the results work? How many hitters did they sign as undrafted free agents right afterwards? You know what I mean? So
right.
It's kind of one of those things, and that's why we're not draft nicks. We don't know much about any of these kids. All I know is their number 1 pick just won the College World Series with his team. That's all I know.
Yeah. Will Bednar from Mississippi State. Hey, another Will from Mississippi State. We know that guy.
Hey, good point.
Was taken number 1 by the Giants, number 14 overall. He was named most outstanding player of the College World Series for the collegiate champions there. So he's 21 years old, 6'2", 230. His stats for the year were 92 innings, 3.12 ERA, 1.06 whip, 139 strikeouts, and 26 walks. So, look, this is a guy that's pretty mature for the college ranks, obviously performed well under pressure, so the Giants definitely see a value in him. And it goes down the list from there. Like you said, it's been mostly college players in the first few rounds. But, I've looked through some of these guys. They look like they're pretty exciting. But again, how many of these top round picks that the Giants have had over the last 20 years that just seem to flame out? That's what you get with pitchers. I heard from, who was it? Grant Brisbee was on KMBR this morning, and they were asking him that same thing. They're like, why are the Giants and all these other teams taking just nothing but pitchers? Like, this is crazy. Like, they've been taking catcher last year, Joey Bart the year before that, right? You go down the list, and they've taken a lot of other outfielders and what have you. And he has a theory. He doesn't know if it's true. I don't know. It sounds kind of crazy, but maybe there's something to it. With the realignment of the minor leagues, each team has one less affiliate to place prospects in. So there are just less slots out there. And typically, and I agree with this, it takes longer to groom a pitcher than it does a position player. And maybe it's just a situation where they have less chance, less coaches, fewer teams to groom those pitchers. So they need to up the number of pitchers on each staff to slam them in just to see which diamond is going to, rise to the top. I don't know. It's an interesting strategy to see the Angels do 20 for 20. I mean, not a single position player. I mean, that's crazy to me. That's absolutely insane to me. But there's a reason, and I don't know why. Very odd.
It was odd, but like I said, who knows? Who knows if it'll pay off? Every one of these is some new strategy that we've never seen before.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on these guys, but obviously we won't hear from most of these guys for at least a couple of years. And the guys who are taken 16th, 17th, 18th probably never hear from them again. So It's just the way the draft rules. All right, transaction injuries. We don't really have too much to cover. It's been mostly Buster Posey.
I was gonna say I can cover this real quick.
Sure.
Since the 4th, we knew at the beginning of last week on the 5th, Chadwick Tromp got called up. Sam Long went on the DL. Beatty got called up, and Jalen Davis went on the DL. And we knew Chadwick Tromp coming up meant that there was a possibility that Buster would go on the injured list. And then on the 6th, they got Vossler back, and they sent down Sherfy, they designated from assignment.
Yep.
And Tyler Beatty was officially activated at the end of the Cardinals series, before the Nats series. And then I think the surprise was that Friday you were there covering Buster Posey went to the 10-day DL, which was retroactive, which also means he'll be eligible to come off the IL on this Friday. So if he's healthy, he's going to play. If he can squeeze a bat and catch a ball, he's going to play. Logan Webb also was activated, obviously, that night because he pitched. Mike Tauchman's down in the minors now on rehab. Joey Bart was on the taxi squad for a day. You saw him, and then he started the next day. And then he was sent back down to the minors, Joey Bart, on Sunday.
Yeah, expected that.
Yep, to make room. I don't know. I guess Berriger is really who he made room for, and Beatty also got sent back down. So Berriger's back up, and Tauchman's on a rehab assignment. And then there's other injury news. Guys like LaStella and Longoria have been doing workouts and should be ready by the end of July. But beyond that, everybody's going to be coming back. But that was, you're right, it was a quiet week, really. For the Giants, that's
an extremely quiet week. Yeah, you didn't have 1,000 moves. I also heard that Mauricio Dubon is ripping it up in AAA. He's hitting 420 apparently. So, he's trying to earn his way back. So it's great to see. It's great to see a kid that's hungry like that and just feasting off AAA, Pacific Coast League, or they don't call that anymore. It's AAA West or whatever. Yeah, something like that. So. Which, by the way, I know the Giants were down in Vegas a couple of weeks ago. You didn't get a chance to go out there, did you?
No, circumstances and the heat, really. But
the heat. That's just like,
I didn't have a chance to.
It's not like you're in a dome there, so that's true. Yeah,
They
baseball's
should be.
fun to watch, but not.
I don't know how the
110
A's are
degree
gonna.
weather.
The A's are gonna end up. That's where they'll play if they need a temporary home, and I don't know how they're gonna play in 108-degree heat. That's ridiculous. It was 118 last week. You can't play baseball at 118-degree heat.
Well, even if you're playing, all night games at 7:00, it's still over 100 there. So
it is.
Yeah.
There's times it doesn't get under 100 until after midnight. So
yeah.
But it's a dry heat.
7 a.m. games. Here we go.
Seriously, it's the best time of day. They should schedule it for like 4 or 5 in the morning. That's when the cool breeze kicks in and the blow dryer effect is off.
Oh my God, that's too much. All right, so we're going to cover who's hot, but not who's not, because it's the end of the first half, and we're going to just be happy as we head on out here for episode 231. So Brandon Crawford, we said he was hotter than hell, and he is. 19 for his last 32. My God, that's a 594 clip. What the hell? I mean, that's a significant number at bats. That's insane. So that's what's raised his average to 289. It's been great. Disco is 7-1 with a 1.75 ERA since he gave up 10 earned runs to LA. And prior to that disaster start in LA, his ERA was 2.08. So it's actually been better than before the LA game. So his overall ERA is like a 2.68 right now, but it's under 2 if you throw out that LA start. So he's almost right there with Gausman if you throw that one outlier. And everybody has a crappy game, and he just had a really crappy game. But, hey, those runs count. Alex Wood, 3-0 in his last 3 starts with a 2.08 in 17 1/3 innings pitched. Casale, the last 15 games, and this does not include an 0 for 3 right after he came off the injured list. So this is his last 15 games. 17 for 39. That's a 436 clip with 4 bombs and 12 runs batted in. He's raised his average from 100. And we were talking about this. A dude is hitting 100 on the Giants. And it was like, he's got to come around because he's like a career 2-something hitter, right? It's like the means have got to come back to the average here. And it did. He's raised it all the way to 220. So even though overall that's a crappy average, hey, we'll take it. I mean, because he's admirably filled in since he came off the injury list and filled in for Buster Posey. So there's been no complaints. And he single-handedly won a couple of games aside from the way he catches his staff.
Yeah, it's been really crazy that Casale has stepped up after we were questioning. We weren't saying get rid of him earlier this season.
No.
We saw the value in Casale, but to have him be even more valuable, I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens on surprise teams. Is you get contributions from guys like Casale and guys like Ruff and Crawford going nuts and Disco being so dominant when he's been pitching. And Wood, he does this. He rips off these streaks of 3 or 4 starts in a row where he does well, and then he might have one not as well. But it's been impressive so far. Everybody, but Crawford, 19 for his last 32. Like, we've wondered, when is he going to slow down? And he just doesn't slow down. Like, he took a little dip, and then bam, he's right back.
He is seeing the ball so well right now. He is just dumb silly. Unfortunately, in the All-Star game, he did not get a hit, and he committed what they initially ruled as a base hit, because when you look at the replay, he's not throwing him out.
No, Mullins is fast.
Yeah, he's playing the shift. He had to go all the way over to get that ball, way up on the edge of the grass. And yeah, he fumbled the ball. But when you look at the replay, you're like, there is no way in the world he is throwing him out. And the scorekeeper originally gave him a hit. And then later they changed it to an error, and 2 runs did score. So they both were credited as unearned runs, which now kind of are on his watch. But, that's just one of those things. It's like, they lost by 3. So it is what it is. So, yeah, no. And then, of course, Gausman didn't participate because he started on Sunday, which is nice, though, because they can reset him to start the second half on Friday. So that's
Think about this, though. The Giants are the best team in baseball, and their only all-star appearance was Brandon Crawford going 0 for 1 with a weak pop-up and an error.
Yep.
And they're the best team in baseball, but you know what I mean? They didn't have like 6 guys there like the Brewers did. But
yeah, what was up with that?
I was shocked. They're going through the intros, and he's like, "All right, Brewer. Oh, another Brewer. Oh, look, another Brewer. Oh my God, how many Brewers are there?" And I think it was like 5 or 6. Peralta, Hader, some other pitcher, Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
Got the loss, and there was a couple other guys too. It was just, it's like, how come? And how did the Pirates get 2 starters? How the hell did the Pirates have 2 starters in the All-Star game? It made no sense to me.
It made no sense. I don't know what happened. They were hitting like 8 and 9, right? Yeah. That was weird.
I totally get why the American League won though. They're totally stacked compared to the National
They're stacked.
League lineups.
They are.
Oh
God. I'm sorry, but they just are. And part of it is the advent of the DH. Not that all of them are DHs, of course not, but it's just the pool is a little bit thicker. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention this, but there were reports that Major League Baseball will most likely be doing away, which we expected this anyway, of the 7-inning doubleheaders, and starting the guy on second in extra innings. I don't think there was a question about that. But then they're also talking about the DH National League, again, something that we've talked about before. So these are not unexpected things, but they are going to come to the collective bargaining agreement, and we don't expect the players to want it any other way. I don't. Even though I do think that some players would have an argument for 7-inning doubleheaders and the runner on second because it makes the game shorter. Therefore, they're out on the field shorter. They're earning just as much money, blah, blah, blah. But, in the spirit of the game, hopefully Major League Baseball doesn't go that way and recognizes this as only COVID precautionary rules.
Well, he said it. Manfred said it, and I don't really like Manfred, but Manfred said it. He's like, we thought the world would be different than it is right now when we put these rules in place at the beginning of this year. And you can even point to the beginning of this year with the Mets and Phillies and whatever the hell went on there.
Yeah, there was an outbreak there, yeah.
Right. Still in this season as a reason to have those added rules in there. But like you said, we fully expected this stuff to go away, and I'm just happy it is.
Yeah. And I know you're happy about the DH, but...
Yes.
Boo. Okay, anyway. Coming up, the Giants have 3 in St. Louis starting this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they come over to L.A. to continue the road trip, and they have 4 in Chavez Ravine. So a lot of really important ball coming up after St. Louis. They got 4 against the Dodgers, and they come home against the Pirates, but then they also welcome the Dodgers back to Oracle for another 3, and then they welcome the AL leading Astros for 3. So when you add it up, that's 10 games against 2 teams that are really good right now. Giants are going to be tested. I mean, yeah, they still have the Cardinals and Pirates in there that they can't ignore. They lost 2 or 3 to the Cardinals at home. But man, I'd say you take 4 out of 6 from the Cardinals and Pirates and hope to split against the Dodgers and the Astros.
Right, go 5-5 in those. There are 3 teams that have gone 20-10 over the last 30 games: the Giants, the Dodgers, the Astros.
See, I know it's just one of those things, and these 7 games against the Dodgers, because they only have 9 left, right? The entire year, don't they? Right. So this is 7 of those 9, right up at the front. Their front stack and everything. So I tell you what, if the Giants can somehow win 5 or 6 of those 9, well, if we want to talk about the first 7, if they can win at least 4, but somehow get 5, I doubt that would happen. But if they can get 4, it's going to, buffer their lead a little bit. But if they lose 4 or 5, or God forbid 6 out of those 7, that's where the Dodgers are going to take it, And not that it's impossible to overtake them
the rest of the year if that's
what happens. You don't want to be... Yeah, you don't want to be chasing the Dodgers after these 7 games. If they can stay in front of the Dodgers after these 7 games, you said it last time, they would have weathered the storm. And they've weathered all of these punches that are thrown at them. Every single one they've weathered. They've been very resilient. But it's one last little stretch here of 7 games. Because in the rest of the season, they only have a 2-game series. And that's it against the Dodgers, which
like I said, the Dodgers went 20-10 over their last 30 games, and they didn't gain any ground.
I know.
I mean, they're in the same spot they were before, but that's what's crazy. That's how good the Giants have been.
I'm sure Dodger podcasts and that we don't listen to are probably pissed. They're like, who the hell? How do they keep staying ahead of us? I don't understand. We have the second best record in all of baseball. So it's been great so far. So I'm glad that you guys have all joined us for the ride. Well, that'll do it for episode 231, a nice long post All-Star break podcast. We'll be back again next week, probably just to review the 3-game series in St. Louis for episode 232. You can follow us collectively on Twitter at TortureCast, individually at ChadK21 for myself, at 2OutHits with the number 2 for Eric, and for the missing Willie Dills, who's doing some sort of wrestling show. He loves wrestling. He even does a wrestling podcast these days, or had been. At Willie Dills. You can also find all of our content at torturecast.com. Eric, you got anything else?
Nope, just another plug. Join Giants Chatter on Facebook. It's a fun group that we do get into some good discussions. If you want to learn about numbers a little bit and stuff like that, that stuff's posted there. There's good trade discussion ideas. It's not your average. Please click here and vote for this guy for the All-Star Game page. It's more of a, hey, the Giants have done this. Do you think they can sustain it? And then people will discuss. So if you want to find a good Facebook group where you find other Giants fans, maybe you think Twitter's dying. I don't know. I'm not on Twitter as often. So, maybe you're not on Twitter as often either because, I'm not. No, I'm just kidding. Just
that's the
right. But if you're not this Facebook group, it's a good place to get some of your Giants action. Giants Chatter on Facebook.
Yeah, I admit I lurk a lot on the Giants Chatter page because I just don't have time to always put in thoughtful content to that page because it's.
Me too.
But that's what I like about it is that it is a thoughtful content page. It's moderated very well, and that's part of it. But, any wild cards or outliers, I'm sure, are dealt with and have been behind the scenes that I'm not even aware of, because I just don't see, bad. I think I saw one. I think I've seen one, and I don't want to say it, but it was some semi-racist post that I assume was dealt with. Point being, it's a very thoughtful page, and, there's nothing, there's a couple hot takes here and there, but for the most part, it's very intelligent discussion. Some fun banter back and forth, and some information and nuggets that I'm not aware of that was that's great to read from time to time. So it's fun to read. Also, the game threads are entertaining as well. So definitely go check it out.
Yeah, it depends on, the game threads are fun because it's like Twitter in that way, but it's like the same group of people a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to expand that a little bit. And it's funny because we know who's drinking rum, we know who's doing this, we know who's doing that. It's gotten to that point, right? It's a testament to Doug Hay, Say Hey Doug. Shout out to the Say Hey podcast. It's a credit to him that he set up a good page like that and found the right guys to run it too.
Yeah.
It's
the important part.
Because there's a lot of crap, like you said, that you don't even know it gets dealt with. And it's just, I'm amazed at how much crap needs to be dealt with as the moderator of a Facebook group. And I never thought I'd, promote a Facebook group, but because I enjoy myself in there, I'm totally going to promote the hell out of it every time.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that'll do it for episode 231. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Until then, we'll see you next Monday for episode 232. Boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.